kind of the things we're going to try to accomplish here over the next couple of years. So we certainly think that, with the contract that you're kind of talking about, is something we'll work through. We're going to have to do probably a few things with different contracts as we head towards the season and through the season to make sure that our salary cap situation, not only this year, but in 2022 is square.
So the GM of the Packers and the GM of the Falcons, we don't think of those as star-studded teams. They're both like, listen, we got this cap thing. We got to let go of Julio Jones, and we'll get away. Why? Because your quarterback's $37 million. Look at the offseason of Kansas City. Mahomes is a $7.4 million cap hit. They rebuilt their offensive line. Joe Tooney, they paid a fortune to. Orlando Brown Jr., by next year, they're going to pay a fortune to. They just go look at the offensive line numbers they brought in this year, and they already paid Tyreek Hill and Honey Badger and Frank Clark and Travis Kelce. Look at Tampa's offseason. Nobody got a pay cut. Everybody. They paid everybody. They even franchise guys. Chris Godwin makes a fortune. Shaq Barrett, Levante Day. And I agree with all of them. But there's two teams in the NFL, Seattle and Green Bay, who have what we perceive to be A-plus quarterbacks, and they're always like having to try to move stuff around. I mean, Seattle had to let go of Carlos Dunlap, bring him back to just fit him in on a reduced deal. Why didn't Tampa or Kansas City have to do that? Folks, everybody wants to know the secret of Tom Brady's success and longevity. It ain't coaching. It's A, he takes care of his body to a level nobody ever has, and B, he's constantly restructuring his deal. You can't tell me it's coaching. What about Big Ben? Big Ben's got more natural talent than Brady, but he doesn't take care of his body. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson have more natural talent than Tom Brady, but they don't restructure their deals. You can't tell me Brady's success is tied to Belichick. He just went to Bruce Arians and won a Super Bowl, and Belichick can't win without him. You can't tell me it's tied to coaching because Mike McCarthy has a more impressive resume than Matt LaFleur. The difference is Matt LaFleur gets expensive Aaron, and Mike McCarthy got mostly cheap Aaron. You can't blame coaching. We know Pete Carroll can win a Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl. It's not the coaching thing. And I'm not saying coaching doesn't matter. You can't have a grease fire as a head coach. But Big Ben, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers have not achieved Tom's success. It's not about the coaching. It ain't a Pete Carroll, Matt LaFleur, Mike Tomlin thing. It's one guy didn't take care of his body. That's why it's so bad now. And especially at the end of a season, Big Ben looks shot. And the other two guys won't take a pay cut. Just look at what Kansas City has done. First of all, Mahomes signed a very team-friendly deal. When he signed it, we all said, everybody said, even the Capologists guys were like, oh boy, Kansas City got a deal. Then they already restructured it. And now he's only making $7 million. They just gave him an all-star offensive line. Tom Brady's got an all-star defensive unit. And so you get to a point on all this. I got Green Bay and Atlanta. Those are not star-studded rosters. But once you pay a quarterback 35, 37, 38, this is what you're dealing with. All they can talk about is the cap. And so, I'm so over the Green Bay story. It's like, I don't think Green Bay's anti-Aaron. I think the GM knows he's great. The dream of every general manager in this league is to draft somebody as talented as Aaron Rodgers. That is the dream for every GM. The nightmare is the years you have to pay him $39 million, because then you can't build on it. I don't think anybody's against Aaron in Green Bay. I mean, actions speak louder than words. They did take Jordan Love, but I think it comes back to one thing. Aaron's smart. He does take care of his body, so check that off. That's not the thing. But Aaron's not going to take any pay cuts. He's not married to a supermodel. Okay? So he didn't have somebody making $500 million. NFL, he didn't have a shoe deal like an NBA player. He's not going to take any pay cuts. He's had a couple injuries, so he didn't know how long it's going to last. But if you want to look at Brady's success, we have all tied it to Belichick. That has been our argument forever. Yeah, he just won with Bruce Arians. No. It's Tom takes care of his body, and Tom constantly restructures his deal. Russell won't, and Aaron won't. For reasons, it's up to them. It's not my call. It's your money, not mine. Joy of the news.
No.
Turn on the news.
This is the Herd Line News.
Trey Lance is anxiously waiting to find out where he will be drafted on Thursday night. He joined First Things First this morning and showed how confident he is in his potential compared to the other four prospects at quarterback this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm the best quarterback in the class, and I'm excited to prove that, get to an organization and have an opportunity to prove it. Those guys would say the same exact thing, and I truly do that. As a quarterback, I think that's the mindset you got to have.
I agree.
And he's also probably, as we've said before, if he does drop, look at the teams he could drop to. Better rosters.
Well, yeah, I mean, that worked out pretty swimmingly for Lamar Jackson and many other
Patrick Mahomes,
many other quarterbacks throughout league history. It's not always the worst thing to drop. Now there is, some esteem and ego involved in going at the top of the draft, but yeah, you're generally going to go to a worse team and a worse roster.
Listen, here's the thing for anybody upset if Justin Fields or Trey Lance drops. Never forget this. You make your money as a quarterback with your second and third contracts.
Yeah.
You don't make it with your first. And if you get overdrafted, Baker Mayfield, and you end up going to a bad organization that can't get the coach right for 3 years, you may never get that big second contract. You get a fifth-year option. So, Trubisky, he's overdrafted. He ends up with a GM who I don't think knows what he's doing. It's not a very good roster, and Trubisky's done.
Yep.
And Baker, but all these drop guys, Lamar drops, he's going to get an option.
Well, there's also a lot of talk about, Trey Lance not, obviously he has the same amount of starts as Mac Jones, but Mac Jones has played more frequently, and he's playing against better competition in the SEC, and he's with better coaching. But I don't think that the small school quarterback thing is as important as people
totally agree.
lean into.
I think we're past that.
Well, I don't know. A lot of people really feel like Mac Jones is a better prospect than Trey Lance because he played in the SEC and he played for Alabama. I actually think it doesn't hurt him, but I look at it as, well, you had incredible talent around you. Not that you didn't elevate it.
Well, you also had incredible coaching talent.
Yeah, like how do you really evaluate how good you are as an individual when you have that kind of support system around you? It's not his fault. Like that's where he went and that's where he played. But I think if you elevate a smaller program with less talented players around you, I think that matters as well. I mean, we've seen guys like Josh Allen, obviously. Carson Wentz came from North Dakota State. Jimmy Garoppolo, Tony Romo, Joe Flacco, Kurt Warner, Northern Iowa, Steve McNair, Alcorn State. Like, it really doesn't matter where you go. It's the potential. It's the raw talent. It's the development. Where you go to college. Where you go in the NFL is what determines your success.
It's really happening in the NBA. Steph Curry went to Davidson. I mean, what's happening, you're seeing in the NFL and in the NBA, where you go is not as a big a deal as we think. The bottom line is, it's the same in recruiting. Your cousins know this. If you're talented, you will be found.
Right.
And you will be given a second chance. I mean, Sam Darnold is not winning games. He's going to get a second chance. Like, in the end, if you work hard, whether you go to school, Alabama could be great for certain positions, but at Alabama, you may not play as much early because they have so many good players.
Right.
Whereas Trey Lance can literally walk in with very little quarterback history and take over the program. So the good news for all young people, if you're good, if you work hard, they'll find you. NBA will find you in Davidson. I mean, Klay Thompson went to Washington State. And, I mean, think about that.
Right, and sometimes your profile not being as big as somebody who went to a bigger school works in your favor because, as we said, you can drop to a better NFL program, which really determines how successful you're going to be, not your college program. So the Eagles already traded down in the draft from number 6 to number 12, but they could be on the verge of making another move. Philly reportedly has made a lot of calls to try and trade back up into the top 10. Now, this could be a little bit of a strategy on their part to try and feel out how committed people are to those particular draft slots because they might be taking certain players. So it might not be that the Eagles necessarily want to move up because they don't want to give up any of their first-round picks. So if they can move back up into the top 10 without losing any of their first-round picks that they got in the trade down, then it would be a value. But I think it's also because they want to poke around and see, the Lions really want to stay there. They're probably taking, this player that's been rumored to go there, like that position. So they are trying to kind of do their due diligence to see what's going to be available for them at 12. I don't think that they're going to give up one of the picks they got to move back in the top 10.
Detroit and Philadelphia, I feel like to me, I would trade back. I mean, I think Philadelphia is in a much bigger rebuild than they want to admit. Because for Howie Roseman to admit we're in a rebuild, you have to admit you haven't done a very good job drafting. Like, Philadelphia, to me, is not one of the 10 to 12 most talented teams. They're not even close to a Baltimore roster.
I think they're the worst team in their division.
Well, some of that's going to be coaching, but I don't know. If I'm Detroit and Philadelphia, get me out of here. I want to